In this video, I'm showing you this map. This is a map of New Spain around 1800. Okay? This was the United States of America, when the nation was relatively young. These were the territories that the United States received from Great Britain later on. But this later, okay? This still used to be British territory around 1800. And this territory over here, the Mississippi Territory, was part of West Florida. In 1763, when the 7 Years' Wars ended, which was actually a world war, worldwide in ports, people were fighting. During that war, Britain occupied Havana, the capital of Cuba. So Spain was forced to concede. So Spain conceded Florida, which was the wall of this. Florida was a province of Cuba. France surrendered Louisiana to Spain, because Spain was governed by the same royal gang called the Bourbon dynasty. Okay? These parts were also part of Louisiana, but they fell onto Great Britain. So this here, all of this became British territory. Now we know later these colonies revolted, and well, actually the elites revolted and established the United States of America. This here, around 1783, I believe 1783, Spain took back Florida from Great Britain. Why? Because the United States of America was established, the British presence wasn't that strong. So Spain took back Florida and became a province of Cuba again. Now, the Americans, at least that was the propaganda, they claimed that this territory, I forgot the name of the territory now, but okay, the name they used back then, but this area over here at the southwest of the state of Georgia, the former colony of Georgia, they claimed it was British territory, and because the United States separated from Britain, they considered this to be part of the United States. Well, Spain did not agree. So Spanish rule remained over here. This was part of Florida governed from Cuba. And to enforce consequences on the assaults of the Americans, all American goods coming from the Mississippi were blocked by the Spaniards. Why? Because La Nueva Orleans is how they called it. That's the Spanish version of Nouvelle Orleans, or in English, New Orleans. That was a Spanish city because this became Spanish, and the Spanish authorities in Cuba gave orders to block all merchandise coming from the United States. That was a big economic loss for the United States because the Caribbean was quite important for trade that came from the Mississippi region. Now Spain, well, possessed all of this, and the United States needed this river for trade. So their conflict with Spain was not a good idea, because when you look at this map, Spain dominated almost the whole of North America. Almost all the wealth of North America was governed by Spain. And this disputed territory, which is Oregon, from here all the way to Alaska, was called Reino de Oregon, or El Oregon, English Oregon, which was also a Spanish territory. And Spain had many forts established over here. So, what happened? There were militias from the United States that began to attack Spanish Florida, also this territory over here. Spain tolerated it. Spain allowed it to happen. Now, that doesn't mean that Spain didn't take any actions, but they tolerated it. Now, you may ask, why did Spain tolerate this? First of all, the United States became independent due to the assistance of Spain from New Spain over here. So why would the Americans now turn on those that helped them become independent? Well, that shows you that people can betray you. Now here, a whole country betrayed their ally, but okay. When this was going on, the United States was defending its heritage that they received from the British. Well, quite weird. They fight against Britain because they don't want anything to do with colonialism, but now they use colonialism as an excuse to extend their territory. But okay, they resisted the situation. They resisted Spain's blockage of their goods at the Mississippi. They considered that an assault on the United States. So they kept resisting. They didn't tolerate the decision by Spain. They demanded that they had free flow of their goods on the Mississippi and that Spain would concede this region over here to the United States. While the Americans were so fixated on resisting Spain, they lost sight of the North. Because even though they signed the Treaty of Paris, in which King George III of Great Britain recognized the United States as a sovereign state, a sovereign federation of states, and even though they had a constitution that came into force in 1789, there were still British forts in the territory, and there were still British soldiers over here. And there were many plantation owners, British plantation owners, that still had the British flag. So in practice, they were so-called independent, but independence was kind of a joke. And there was no strict border between British Canada and the United States. But because the Americans were so fixated on resisting the Spanish in the south, they lost sight of the British in the north. And you had the War of 1812, in which the British, through Canada, burned down the White House. I mean, they burned down Washington, D.C., I believe. Well, that war was worked out later on. But all that conflict didn't have to happen. If they would have looked at the bigger picture, would have realized, hold on a minute, Spain dominates almost 80% or even more of the wealth of North America. We're just a small federation of states here, of which many people didn't even support the independence. So we need to keep Spain as an ally. We resisted Britain, but Britain is still present there. We need to get the British out so that we can make claim we are the United States of America. They should have focused on that. That was what the bigger picture required. But because they were so fixated on their national pride, they resisted Spain. They were so fixated about a small territory that didn't really matter. While their northern border, which really did matter, they lost sight of it. And here's the thing, Spain, they don't take immediate action against the United States. They easily could have done it. Okay, they could have mobilized troops over here. They could have sent the Navy over here. They could have done a lot. But here's the thing. Spain knew what it was doing. Spain made a lot of dumb decisions in their empire. Let's be frank about that. But Spain understood by the United States resisting them like this, they are exhausting themselves. And they are collapsing themselves eventually. Which happened also. Okay? Now, why am I talking about this? Why did I give this history lesson? I want you to take an example of this. I'm using this history as a parable for you. The world tells you, set firm boundaries. Don't stop tolerating stuff. What you tolerate will continue. What you put up with, that's what will continue. They have all these sayings to motivate you to say no, to stand firm, and to fight against things you don't want. The world tells you to vindicate your will. That is what they're teaching you. Well, I'm telling you to evaluate your will, to see whether your will is really correct, whether your will is right, whether your will is even worth it. Because, as I already explained here, if those Americans would have really paid attention, they should have focused on the British in the north. And first of all, you're independent as a nation, but there's not even a clear border between your former motherland and you. And there's still troops of your former king in your nation. And here comes the worst part. Your nation isn't even that unified. The elites are unified, but many of the people, especially in the southern states, didn't even support the constitution. So you are a very weak federation, and now you're fighting with this colonial power, Spain, for actually, if you compare to North America, just a piece of land that's not that productive. What? Shouldn't you focus more on the north? Shouldn't you focus more on strengthening yourself as a federation. Look, too often when circumstances appear that we don't want, we go against them, we take action because we think if we don't do anything, it will continue. We operate from fear. We operate from relief seeking. No, I'm telling you to shut up, sit down, take a deep breath, pray, and look around. Because just like the United States back then, exhausted itself by fighting for a use. I'm not saying useless in the sense that there was no valuable thing in that plot of land. There were people living there, there were farms over there. So it had some potential, but economically speaking, it wasn't that important. So politically speaking, it was a useless fight. Eventually, Spain conceded this territory onto them, but when it happened, they were so into this victory. In, I believe it was 1791, I believe, but okay, but they were so into this victory that they won this territory, that they were so fixated on establishing themselves and validating themselves in this territory that they couldn't see the war coming of 1812. 1812 was some years ahead, but they could have seen that the conflict was coming over here. They didn't see it coming because they were so fixated on winning this battle over here. And if you look at the bigger picture, the battle wasn't even worth it. Look, I'm using this as a parable, as I mentioned before. Evaluate your circumstances, evaluate your affairs. Watch out that the enemy doesn't trick you into fighting a battle that will not benefit you once you win. All I'm saying is this: beware of victories that will cancel themselves out. Not every victory is a blessing, because it's not really a victory to begin with. Now, of course, it's just a little part of history. Things change because the Spanish Empire collapsed and all of that, but I'm using this to teach you. Look at the bigger picture. It can be, for example, I'm giving another example now. It can be that you have this associate that often texts you on WhatsApp, and you think, why stop sending those messages and all of that, and you become annoyed and you want the individual to stop and you block that individual. But hold up. You think, I don't need to talk to this individual. I have those other people I interact with. But those other people you're interacting with, they're keeping you in bondage. They are keeping you trapped. They hinder you from seeing what's going on. Some of those people are not really that interested in you. They just want comfort and they like you to be around. While that individual that keeps sending text messages, he's not obsessed with you, he's not stalking you, he's not any of that. He is just motivated in investing in you because he or she sees potential. But you can't see it because you only focus on the relief you have. And because you only focus on the relief, you consider this individual a hinder to your relief and you consider it annoying. But if you would look at the whole situation, you would look at your circumstances, you realize, hold on a minute. I'm in these relationships with these people, with these other associates, but I'm not moving forward. I'm not growing emotionally, nor mentally, nor spiritually. I'm not expanding. I'm not learning anything new. So what am I doing with these people? And then this guy or this girl, let's say you're a woman and it's a female associate that likes to be in contact with you. This girl over here, she has investment in private business of other people. She is writing blogs. She's making progress. Now, if you look at the bigger picture, you would realize, hold on a minute. I'll rather put up with this individual sending messages because this individual may send quotes and things to motivate me. While those other people, yeah, I do chat with them and laugh, but that's it. So you may resist individual you consider annoying, and just like this, you may win territory, getting your will done, but because you're so focused on getting your will done, you don't notice all the other stuff. And that's how the enemy often works. If he draws your focus to something that you don't will, that you can fight that with what you do will, and once you get your will, you're so relaxed that you don't see all the other things that you should have noticed. Well, I hope this video has inspired you. Yes, I have a printed map of New Spain on my front door. Why? I enjoy learning from history. I have more of such maps hanging here in this apartment. Anyway, agree with Christ and be at peace.